Andrew Erickson, Fantasy Pros, welcome.
Podfather, what's going on?
Whoa.
Talk to me.
Ooh. This is a more challenging week than last week. I was very confident last week. I had a great starter stream show on Sunday. We nailed everything from Nick Westbrook-Akine to Odunze over Marvin Harrison Jr. This week, looking at the slate, not as clear, not as easy. A lot more uncertainty going on. A lot of bad quarterbacks facing good defenses. And that's always tricky.
Yes, it is, Podfather. Very tricky.
So, you're at Fantasy Pros. You just got off a podcast. You're going back-to-back podcasts. I love doing that. I love going from one podcast to the next podcast, jumping. So talk to us about Fantasy Pros. Talk to what you're doing. You I know you write the article, the big fantasy forecast article. Get people ready for the slate. I don't know how high you were on Odunze last week. It was a great process if you were. Talk to us about what you're up to.
Yeah, well, Odunze in the forecast last week was a buy. He was a player that I talked about. You should go trade for Rome Odunze because he's a rookie, came out of the bye week, immediately had a great game. And what do we see all the time? Rookies, second half of the year, they break out. And nothing about Keenan Allen or DJ Moore this year has been, these guys are clearly establishing themselves as alphas. When Caleb Williams is running around trying to find somebody, it's Odunze that he's connecting with more often than not. So.
Because he's awesome. He's one of the best receivers in the league already. That's all you need to know, man. That's all you need to know. And this idea that the coach is so incompetent that he is going to walk onto the field and trip Odunze, is that what you think is going to happen? I know bad coaches can, not help teams score points, but at the very least, there's no way that they can go out there and actively conspire against players. They could just, minimize their potential, and certainly, but even if you're minimizing the potential of Rome Odunze by being less creative than most coaches, Rome Odunze is going to go out and he's going to beat his man play after play after play after play, and there's nothing the coach can do to stop him from doing that. There's nothing Shane Waldron can do to throw sand in the gears of Rome Odunze making opposing cornerbacks look bad.
Yeah, I think that it's used as even more of a positive for the players when they're actually able to overcome the poor coaching. Look at the Raiders with Brock Bowers, right? It didn't matter now who the coach was. They don't even have any offensive coordinators. They fired everybody. And you look up and Brock Bowers is tight end 1, leading the NFL in catches. He's right up there. So it didn't matter what Luke Getsy or whoever now it's going to be calling the play, Scott Turner maybe. It doesn't matter because Brock Bowers is just that good. And similar sentiment with Rome Odunze.
Oh, we have breaking news. Oh, wow, this is huge. Big trade in the NFL. Oh, trade deadline move. Blockbuster deal. The Dallas Cowboys have acquired Jonathan Mingo.
Fourth round
Jonathan
pick.
Mingo is now a Cowboy. Jonathan Mingo, who could not separate at the Senior Bowl and then got drafted ahead of a bunch of receivers that could separate. That's a thing that happened. If you had just been there, the fact that Jonathan Mingo got drafted over Tank Dell was one of the more embarrassing events in the history of the NFL draft. And Jaden Reed. And of course, Puka Nacua. Everybody passed up Puka Nacua. The Jonathan Mingo draft pick it just exemplifies everything that's wrong with Carolina. You had in the same year that they traded for Bryce Young. So we got Bryce Young, we got Jonathan Mingo, we're set. We got a great stack here. First round, Bryce Young, second round, Mingo. Carolina's coming, man.
Yeah, I don't think this isn't going to save Mingo probably.
Nope. But I just released my fab guidance on Patreon, patreon.com/podfather. Who to bid on this week on the waiver wire at wide receiver. Hard to beat Jalen Tolbert. Jalen Tolbert. CeeDee Lamb could miss. We had a bunch of receivers that were trending toward playing on Sunday, and then a bunch of them decided Nah, little still, my hammy's still a little bit sore. Can't do it. Not gonna do it. Even like Brian Robinson, those are tons of players that you had beat reporters coming out saying they expect him to play, and then they were inactive. So whenever a player leaves the game and does not return, it's 50-50 whether they're going to be back. If not, 40-60. They're going to play the next week.
Podfather, you're the one that always taught me from the days where you said day to day means week to week. Week to week means see you in a month. And I've held that analysis close to my chest this entire time. And people say, oh, well, he's day to day. He's going to play. I'm like, no, he's not.
Well, there's one exception now. We do have the exception to the rule. Okay. We have the Aaron Jones exception.
Yes. Aaron Jones.
If you're Aaron Jones and you are a warrior, you are like a medieval warrior. Like Aaron Jones was riding a horse with armor, well, you know, in a different life. So that's one guy. Other than that, yes. So you think Lamb plays or not?
I don't think he plays.
Nope.
Again, listed as, I believe, week to week. And actually, you don't have to take my word for it. At Fantasy Pros, we have a new tool called Will They Play? And basically, it's an AI-generated injury tool that basically projects whether or not a player is going to play up to that week. So it kind of lets you get ahead of the game based on what the information we have at hand, based on the injury reports, and it can tell you a percentage based on historical track record. Will this player play based on the DNPs, based on this and that? So it's a pretty cool tool.
Yeah. Loving life. Jalen Tolbert is the number one receiver, and Cooper Rush is not that bad. Cooper Rush is no Skylar Thompson. Cooper Rush is no Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Cooper Rush's middle name is not Thompson. There's no Thompson in the name Cooper Rush. He is he's an above average backup quarterback in the league. He has a little mobility. He's got some ability to place the football. Maybe not a great deep ball necessarily, otherwise he'd be a starter if he had all those skills. But he can at least place the football, short, intermediate, and then he can get out and he can extend plays. Why not Jalen Tolbert?
I like Jalen Tolbert. He's been pretty good this year. When he's got opportunities.
Pretty good.
Yeah,
they're at home. They're facing the Eagles. Now, again, this is one of those problems where this is the big issue with this slate. This is a much more challenging slate than last week, where you've got the Cowboys facing the Eagles, and the Eagles secondary is formidable. And you've got Cooper Rush, and I don't know what to make of it, but I'm going to be playing some Jalen Tolbert this week. I'm telling you that right now. We're going to get it right at that. He is this week's Nick Westbrook-Akine.
That's hot.
Yeah, isn't that hot? That's fiery. That is fire. Oh my God, that's fire.
I mean, Tolbert scored a touchdown from Rush last week, didn't he? Let's do it again. Start the streak.
Oh, they've got the shower narrative as well. Don't forget about the shower narrative, the former backups that were playing together on the practice field. Oh yeah.
Tolbert's been a backup for the last 2 years until this year. He got into the starting lineup, and yeah, but he's like, Rush, this is my time, man. This is my time. Third year, let's go.
One of the best end of the draft picks in best ball and underdog was Jalen Tolbert. We talked about that all summer, and we didn't even build in this idea that CeeDee Lamb would get hurt. No one did, but it's happening. If you're a wide receiver, you're at great risk, great peril. If you're a wide receiver in the NFL, if you're a running back, you're good. If you're a running back, you're impervious. The running backs are not getting injured anymore. This idea that running backs are more fragile than wide receivers, sure, that was the case for 10 consecutive years, but not this year.
Maybe it goes back to the fantasy football gods where they said, hey, we'll give you McCaffrey. You can just take all the receivers. And that's the trade-off. And we'll see, because McCaffrey's supposed to come back this week. He's eligible to come off IR. I'm expecting full go, Matt Kelly, but
they sacrificed the great Christian McCaffrey on the altar of injury health for every other running back. Wow. Thank you, Christian. Thank you for doing that. we'll see what happens. Christian McCaffrey coming back. We'll see what his touch share is upon return. Looks like Jordan Mason's going to be healthy, so I think we had a nice little flash for Isaac Garendo. Difficult to keep him rostered, though, if he's the third running back.
I would agree.
I think at this point, I would prefer Jalen Wright. I think that it's very close who to stash. After the clear and obvious stashes, the Roschon Johnsons and the Blake Corums and the Tyler Algiers, Braylon Allens, the clear one-for-one handcuffs that have all-purpose skill sets, once you get past those guys, then you're into a guy that gets an injury is not necessarily a primary back, but he's going to be very fantasy relevant because he's such an explosive playmaker. That's Garendo, and that's Jalen Wright.
Jalen Wright has looked fantastic. I don't know why they keep continuing to feed Raheem Mostert the ball because he keeps fumbling. If this was New England, he wouldn't be on the team anymore. He'd be gone.
He's like 33 years old.
So
Mostert's crazy old.
He's old, and the touchdowns were not going to be sustainable from last year. And I know he's had a couple touchdowns so far this season, but it's not sustainable. Devon Achane is getting all the receptions, all the receiving yards. His receptions prop, Podfather, last week, 3.5. 3.5. That's what the prop was at.
He's killing that. He's averaging more than 7 targets a game.
He hasn't had less than 6 catches in any game with Tua, and it was 3.5. I couldn't have bet anything faster. My favorite prop of the week.
Easiest prop. Wow, was that in your fantasy forecast, or is that a separate betting forecast?
Yeah, it was in a betting forecast. So basically, Debro does the Fantasy Pros primer where he talks about all the games.
Oh, yeah, so we have the primer
from a fantasy lens, and then I write the Betting Pros primer where I look at all the games and matchups through a betting lens, giving best picks against the spread, totals, and then my favorite props in all the different games. And HN, that was the number one thing that pointed out to me. Bills, worst defense against targets, yards, receptions to running backs, and HN. And this was, you want to make money? Bet on HN.
I hope you all enjoyed last week. We all won our matchups. It was a very easy week. I had one team, and I talked about this. I showed it in the top 10 takeaways, where I started Nick Westbrook-Akine and Ray Davis. That's never going to happen again. Okay, that was a one-time thing. But it was just the easiest week. We're in for a big challenge. We're gonna dig into it today. We have all afternoon to dig into what's gonna happen in week 10. But before we do, what was the performance that actually surprised you last week? Though there were very few surprising performances because most of it was chalk or we just saw it coming if you're paying attention to the right details. But there was a few surprises.
Well, the biggest surprise to me was just the absolute eruption game. And maybe in hindsight, it shouldn't have been that crazy to think. But Jackson Smith-Njigba turning into this downfield deep threat against the Los Angeles Rams. 2 touchdowns, 180 receiving yards. Just an absolute monster game. Again, thought Metcalf maybe would play beginning of the week and then ended up not playing. And then JSN just went out and had an absolute monster in a game. And of course, in the forecast, one of the things I got wrong was talking about JSN as a sell. So that was a big fat L for me, but I still think that
he's a sell now, though.
Oh yes, I am not going away from.
You were just a week ahead, man. You're so far ahead. You're so far ahead, man.
That's what I'm saying. I was just a week ahead. I got too aggressive on the JSN sell, but yes, now is the time to clearly sell on Jackson Smith-Njigba.
Do you agree with selling Jackson Smith-Njigba and then acquiring Josh Downs?
Oh, make the flip. Make the flip. One guy
you can get Downs plus.
One guy can't stop seeing targets, and he has Joe Flacco the rest of the season. Josh Downs. Yes, you want to buy the dip on Downs after they played the Vikings defense. It didn't matter who the Colts quarterback was going to be. They were going to struggle in that matchup. So I know that it's the victory laps of Joe Flacco over Anthony Richardson have already been absolutely terrible. It was a terrible matchup. So I think, yes, going right back to Downs. Flipping JSN, get Josh Downs. I think that's the savvy move to make, Podfather.
I think you can get Downs and Ray Davis. That's the hypothetical trade to do right there. Downs plus Ray Davis for Jackson Smith-Njigba. Do it. 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 So which player has disappointed you most this season? Ideally not because of injury, just because throwing up air balls for no reason.
I think it's got to be, for me, it's Breece Hall. Yeah. Just extremely high in Breece Hall. Thought he could be the RB1 and hasn't been injured, but and not the worst player, but no, like I had really high expectations for Breece Hall, and credit to you, Podfather. You were pushing back about how he's more of a satellite back plus, and Braylon Allen was underrated. I didn't think Allen was going to be as much as a factor as he's been, and I know Breece Hall has run pretty cold when it comes to touchdowns in the offense, but yeah, it's just lackluster, man. Like I really thought we could see more from him, and I think that touchdowns might improve in the second half with some more favorable matchups. But I mean, he's had good matchups, and in the good matchups, he just hasn't delivered that week winning ceiling that I envisioned for him. And it goes back to he's just not a running back that moves the chains, right? He's a running back that I want to hit the home run, and that's fine because when he does, oh man, you're feeling great. But when he gets stuffed over and over again because he's not hitting the hole, and Allen does, you're like, well, this is why they're using Braylon Allen, because he's not this finesse or he's not this perfect in between the tackles runner, and he's always trying to hit the big play. Which what happens is when you don't hit the big play, well, you're left with the bag, and it doesn't feel great.
My argument was not that I'm fading Breece Hall into oblivion. My argument was, well, let's just think about where the arbitrage opportunity is. Why am I drafting Breece Hall when I can have Jahmyr Gibbs? Very similar players, very similar skill sets, very similar roles, much better offense. I don't enjoy having fantasy assets tethered to Aaron Rodgers. I know that Garrett Wilson's been exceeding expectations post Davante Adams trade, and I'm very happy. I'm very happy about Garrett Wilson. I really am. I'm thrilled. It's great. But I'm nervous. And I'm not going to not be nervous about Garrett Wilson.
I'm not as concerned about Garrett Wilson. You look at the Jets, and they have one of the best playoff schedules in the fantasy football playoffs, which I love for these receivers. Looking at, the Jets, so the next week, so they play the Cardinals this week, and then the Colts. Then they have their bye week. And then it's Seahawks, Dolphins. Playoffs are Jaguars, Rams, and Bills. I mean, the Jaguars and Rams, right? I mean, I could see Garrett Wilson going nuclear. And it's one of these things where we drafted him because we thought he was going to get all the volume, and he did before Davante showed up, and he wasn't that great. And now his efficiency has just gone through the roof because the defense now has to worry about Adams. So I know that there's always this argument every time we get another receiver thrown into the mix. Well, does this hurt the other receiver? Does this hurt the incumbent? And it's like, you got to ask the question, well, what does that receiver need? If this receiver needs targets, then yes, this is bad. But if this receiver is good, then it shouldn't matter because you should get that efficiency boost. So we're obviously seeing that play out with Garrett Wilson because he is a good wide receiver. He was drafted as one, and he's been good despite having bad quarterbacks. So even with the loss of volume, you are seeing that Adams is giving him a boost in efficiency. It's why he's using more downfield, catching more touchdowns. So I feel pretty good about Garrett Wilson rest of the season.
Last 5 weeks for Garrett Wilson, 29 fantasy points, 25 fantasy points, 13, 16, and 30. Woohoo! Yeah! Let's go! Good player. Oh, there it is. There it is.
Hashtag good at football.
But if we're playing in Dynasty, the rest of their career, we don't know if and when Garrett Wilson's ever going to get a new quarterback that's going to be competent. I'm still confident that eventually Caleb Williams will figure it out. They will get an upgrade in the offensive coordinator chair that will help him. Who you got? You got Rome Odunze or Garrett Wilson in Dynasty?
I think that you're probably going to want to take Rome Odunze.
Mm-hmm.
And I think right now it seems like that wouldn't be the option to make, but we got to, again, in Dynasty, you got to think years ahead. And you're going to look at, well, he's tethered to Caleb Williams, essentially, for as long as we can see. We don't even know who Garrett Wilson's quarterback is going to be next year.
I know.
Who are the coaches going to be? If you're Ben Johnson, right?
I don't know.
Are you going to go to the Jets or are you going to go to the Bears with Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze?
That's where you're going. They got a quarterback, leap coming in Chicago, partly because of the coaching upgrade that is assured there. Okay, so the situation much better for Rome Odunze, so I understand that. What if I give you a similar situation? A wide receiver with a bottom 5 coach and a struggling quarterback. Who you got? You got Garrett Wilson or Brian Thomas Jr.?
Brian Thomas Jr.
Brian Thomas Jr.
Yeah. I just think that you want to take advantage of these rookies when they flash immediately with the draft pedigree. I mean, I think Podfather, correct me if I'm wrong, but on this show, my bold prediction in the summer, right after I got married, that's how I remember it, because it was right after I got married, I came on the show. My prediction was Brian Thomas would lead all rookie receivers in receiving yards. Not bad.
Pretty good prediction.
Good.
Okay, let me make it harder on you. Brian Thomas or Marvin Harrison Jr. in Dynasty?
Gonna keep rolling with Brian. Yeah, why not? Keep rolling with Brian Thomas Jr.
Oh. This is one where Theo really is he's a stable force for good at Player Profiler, for sure. And draft capital matters. And there's been some spike weeks already delivered by Marvin Harrison Jr. So I'm not going to fight Theo and Evan in the Player Profiler AI. But just so everybody knows, if it's up to me, I would not have Marvin Harrison Jr. as a top 10 Dynasty wide receiver. I think that we are going to wake up, perhaps sooner than later, to realize Marvin Harrison, nope, not a top 10 Dynasty receiver. It doesn't take much. All it takes is Nico Collins returning and being productive. That's not a leap. And Brian Thomas, Garrett Wilson, Rome Odunze being productive, not a leap. Not a leap at all. Have you been enjoying the Jameis Winston era thus far?
I mean, anything is better than the Deshaun Watson era, if that's what you want to call it, in Cleveland. I mean, just the fact that you saw this team play and rally in that Ravens game, just excited to play football again, right? Because you don't have this guy that you're supposed to be looking up to as your quote-unquote leader of your team, when all offseason it was, this team loves Jameis Winston. This team can't say enough good things about Jameis Winston as the guy that they like the most. And again, it's weird how things kind of shook out, but I think that Winston just he's fun. He's fun for fantasy. He is the Ryan Fitzpatrick. Again, the player that just injects, hey, I'm going to go out and sling it. And whatever happens, happens. Sometimes you get the Ravens matchup where you get touchdowns. Sometimes you get last week where you get interceptions. But regardless, he's at least giving his receivers a chance to score fantasy points and his offense a chance, and not just taking sack after sack after sack. So, yes, very much enjoying the Jameis Winston experience. Cedric Tillman, loved him out of Tennessee. I thought he was kind of dead in the water after year one, didn't do much, and then start the season doing nothing again behind Amari Cooper, but they ship off Cooper, Watson's out, and what do you know? Browns, he is a good receiver after all. What do you know?
This is exactly, this career path, his body type, his body of work in college, his athleticism, a carbon copy of Nico Collins. I'm talking about if you took it to Kinko's and you said, I want copies made, this is the guy.
Yeah, it's hard to argue against that. I think with Collins, again, another player that weird college trajectory, because again, it was also during that COVID period where guys were missing entire seasons. So how do you account for that? And then he plays on the Texans for a bunch of seasons where there's no quarterback and there's big question marks everywhere. But he finally gets the quarterback upgrade, and it's like, hey, we were right all along. Like, this guy is good. Like, I didn't just imagine it. He is a good player. And the same thing with Tillman. Someone that going to have a lot of dynasty teams because I was very aggressive drafting him last year in rookie drafts. And it was, And man, I'll admit, Podfather, I dropped him in a couple places, but then I made sure I was the first one to get him back on my team. So
yeah, you got
lost
to
him,
get
but
him
I
back.
got him back.
You know, before the season, I was underweight on Nico Collins just because the ADP math didn't add up, where you have to draft at him and then where Diggs was going and where Dell was going. It was difficult to get overweight on Nico Collins, but it turns out, yeah, you had to get some percentage, say 5% Nico in your best ball portfolio because things break right, and this is a league-winning wide receiver. That's what it is. But you still have people in the chat. We have to address this. Mike Latz in the chat says, I thought Nico Collins was a bust. I never said Nico Collins was a bust. If you're talking about where to draft certain players and you're strategizing whether to draft where to draft Jahmyr Gibbs versus Breece Hall, did I say Breece Hall was a bust? No. But there are certain players or certain ADPs that I'm going to be underweight on, and I'm usually going to be right. And if things break Nico Collins' way, where Tank Dell's coming back from the tightrope procedure and he's not 100%, and Diggs tears his ACL, and this guy is back producing incredible efficiency numbers starting in week 1. After week 1, you see, okay, he's carrying over this incredible yards per route run metrics from 2023. You're instantly reassessing and recalibrating your assumptions, and you're in on Nico Collins at that point. And it's been decided. Once you put up together a full season of production and then you carry it over into the next season, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. I'm going to be a little more speculative heading into 2025 with Cedric Tillman after seeing how Nico was able to carry over what he did from 2023 into 2024. But at no point have I ever said Nico Collins is a bust. And if you're underweight on a player and then the reasons why you were underweight fall away, if you don't adjust, if you continue to say this player sucks, then you're going to lose all credibility. You're going to be looking into the camera disingenuously because you can't let go of your prior assumptions. If that's the type of show that Mike Latz is looking for, then there are shows out there. I'm sure there are fantasy shows where there are the hosts, the analysts will not let go. That's not this show. Bye, Mike. Good riddance.
Nico Collins would be proud of that. He'd be proud of you for saying that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, what about Tank Dell? I think the easier pivot to make at this point in the conversation, because it's not like anyone's given up Nico Collins. Everyone knows he's set to return, though the word from Texans camp is not as assured as I was hoping for. DeMeco Ryans said that he's going to be evaluated closely, that we'll continue to evaluate him throughout the week. I heard a whisper campaign a week ago was that there were Texans coaches that were upset that Nico ever went on IR because he's been 100% for the last week and a half anyway. That they missed a week they could have played him because they decided to send him to IR and open up that roster spot. And so this idea that he's not going to play this week after that whisper campaign that I'm damn sure I kind of heard a little bit of, I'm 99% Nico Collins going to play this week and start him with confidence. There's no wait and see on Nico Collins. Not against the Lions. There's not an alpha corner in the league at this point, given this guy's 6'4", 220 pounds with, upper percentile speed score, burst score. You're not going to be able to, you're going to no one's going to smother Nico Collins. No one's going to shut him down. It's not going to happen. You're going to play him. You're playing him. This is a great opportunity. It's really the test for CJ Stroud, who's been one of the most disappointing players in all of fantasy this year. Can he go in, facing a tough defense, though without Aiden Hutchinson, so it's not as stout of a defense as they were early in the year. Can he go up against the Lions? And it's on CJ Stroud's shoulders to fuel a shootout. So part of the case for playing, say, Amon-Ra St. Brown in DFS is that CJ Stroud is still CJ Stroud, that he's going to revert back to the mean this week, and he's going to fuel a shootout. And if it happens, it's not just Nico you want to be starting. You want to be starting Tank Dell.
Fire up the tanks. Tank Dell. I mean, you look at the Lions defense, and Tank Dell hasn't playing a ton of slot this year because they do use him a lot outside. But I think if Nico comes back without Stephon Diggs, I think they might move Dell more into the slot, and that's what the Lions have been dead last. Fantasy points per game, 2 slot receivers. Jaden Reed last week, just in a monsoon in Green Bay, over 100 yards. Why? Plays a slot, right? So yes, Tank Dell, hopefully kind of getting over that leg injury in the gunshot from the offseason and last year. Again, bring it back to what happened with Tony Pollard last year, right? Came back from the leg injury, said he didn't feel himself till about halfway through the season. 100-yard game for Tank Dell on Halloween. Maybe we're starting to see him starting to feel better, feel like himself, and the Texans need him because there's no more Diggs. Diggs is not coming back. So it's Tank Dell and Nico Collins rest of the season. We saw this as last year with Stroud as a rookie. They were flip-flopping big games. They need both guys now. So especially against the Lions, they're going to have to score points. So yeah, I like the shootout call.
Bingo, 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 bingo. We got the shootout going this week. Texans, Lions. Toronto Dave, speaking of the Lions, big fan base, big Lions fan base in Toronto, said, I had a similar stance to the Podfather about Nico, and the Podfather's reflection on it really resonated with me. Thank you, Dave. Thank you. It's only just my honest opinion of exactly what I'm thinking at any given moment and how I'm thinking about things without defrauding the audience. That's all I'm trying to do here. If that's enough for you, great. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate you. There's a bunch of buy low targets out there right now. It's not only NFL trade deadline time, it's also fantasy trade deadlines are coming up. And it's time to get greedy, right? When people are fearful, be greedy. And when people are greedy, be fearful. That's what Warren Buffett says. That's what I say. And we talk a lot about buy high players, but right now it's time to buy low. There's a bunch of buy low options out there. We talked about Josh Downs, clear buy low right now. Think about some of these teams where the offensive skill position players are struggling across the board. There's real doubt about can these teams get out of their own way. Most of them, I say, buy. We talked about the Bears. You're buying Rome Odunze. Do you think? What about DeAndre Swift? DeAndre Swift has this phantom personal foul call against him, but the problem is, because of his reputation, that could get held against him, especially after they've traded Khalil Herbert, showing yet more confidence in Roschon Johnson. Roschon Johnson better be rostered in every league at this point. Just in case the Bears decide, oh no, we're going to take a few more carries away and touches away from DeAndre Swift because of this. I don't think they will, because to me, he was putting his body on the line to protect the quarterback from a blitzing linebacker. He got it wrong. So I don't blame him at all for that. He's still a buy as well. Pretty much, if you're a Bear, I'm buying. DJ Moore, buy. Odunze, buy. Swift, Roschon, buy. A lot of these teams right now, I think most of the players are buys. The Dolphins, okay, Etienne is not buyable because he's a helium balloon that's now in the stratosphere. But Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Jonnu Smith, are these buys for you?
Jalen Waddle, yes. I think he's a buy. Look, we just talked about earlier in the show, Jack Smith-Njigba, right? Had a monster game. What team did he face? The Rams. Jameson Williams. What was his monster game week 1? Who'd he play? The Rams. Marvin Harrison Jr. Week 2. Who'd he play? The Rams. Did you see the theme here going, Podfather? Where
Rams?
These fringy receivers, right? How do you
is
get
it Rams?
Going?
Is that the right answer? Is the Rams?
Yes.
Is it Rams?
Yes. They play.
Is that the commonality? Is it Rams?
Yes. Yes.
Oh
they
my
play Los
God, I
Angeles
got it
Rams.
right.
And yeah, that's who the Dolphins are playing this week.
Did you see the sheer number of total yards that Jalen Waddle lost on the last play of the game?
I'm trying to forget.
Like, how did he get negative receiving yards?
Right, because somebody had tagged me on X about where's Waddle? He's not doing anything, and then he finally catches a pass, and then we're like, great, he finally got a pass. That's awesome. And then next play, it looks like he gets hurt, suffers like a significant injury, and I'm oh my God, what's going on? And then the next play, he's back in, catches a touchdown, does the Waddle dance. I'm like, all right, salvaging a loss here, not a great game, but he scored a touchdown. And then you look at the box score after the game, and you're, wait, didn't he? I saw him catch a touchdown. I didn't imagine that. How did he get negative yards?
It's crazy.
And then you see the final play of the game, and he's actively sprinting backwards, trying to find a reason to lateral the ball. There's nobody back there. And Waddle, man, just go down, man. Just don't be. I mean, he's trying to be a hero. We appreciate
He
that.
already went out earlier in the game with an ankle injury.
Yes. So it was a mess. Insult to injury, literally, with Jalen Waddle. But he did score the touchdown, which, hey, Westbrook Akine scored last week. Waddle scored wet. This is, maybe we're trending up here. And again, Rams.
Tough guy. He's a tough guy. He's a great route runner, tough player, great hands, explosive after the catch. He is one of the best all-purpose wide receivers in the league. His anemic fantasy production is less about him and more about just random chance, the opponents they've faced, and the difficult quarterback situations that the Dolphins have suffered through so far this year. That's the perfect buy low type player when they're at the bottom. This is the bottom. This is the bottom in Dynasty, especially. Now is the time to try to sneak Jalen Waddle on your roster. It's unlikely. If someone has Jalen Waddle in Dynasty, they probably know how good he is, and they're not going to fall for the banana in the tailpipe. But it's possible. It's worth the offer. It's worth extending the offer to start the discussion about what would it take to get Jalen Waddle in Dynasty. What about the Patriots? Because wasn't a great performance, right? Nothing crazy. Like Drake May didn't go nuclear or anything like that. The matchup this week is horrible. You hate any team facing the Bears and that defense. Anyone that watched Hard Knocks knew the Bears defense would be a problem this year, and that is exactly what's happened. So I'm not expecting a lot necessarily from any Patriots other than perhaps just Ramondre Stevenson on volume and the fact that he's an all-purpose back, so he can get you 15 fantasy points no matter who they play. But the game total is 39.5. Bears are 6-point favorites, so the implied points for the Patriots is non-existent. But from here, I want some of these Patriots. You can get them for nothing. I mean, stream Drake May week 11 and beyond. Yes, please. And what about Pop Douglas? Because Pop Douglas came back. He was the target leader. He was trending toward being the leading receiver, and then he gets injured, taking him a couple weeks, and now he's back being the target leader again. Deep leagues. Hey, I'm saying deep leagues, maybe. Right? Deep leagues, maybe?
Maybe. You just usually don't want to start receivers against the Bears. It's usually just not good process. Even for slot receivers, the Bears play much better at home. As when I've done my betting analysis previews, it's a team that has very stark home road splits. Chicago weather's not supposed to be great in this matchup either. So I think it's going to be more of the same where it's Drake May picking up yards, scrambling the ball. And yes, Demario Douglas led the team in targets last week. He had 35 yards. Not great. Not great.
I know.
So the PPR scam, the PPR slot merchant, as George Pickens would like to say, is definitely the case with Demario Douglas, kind of taking on that Josh Downs role that Drake May had at UNC as that underneath slot receiver. So I do like Douglas, but I mean the Patriots receivers just overall they can't get open, man. It's a train wreck. Jalen Polk is now not playing anymore because he had been so bad to start the year. And I just don't understand, why can't Javon Baker just play?
I don't get it.
Just let him play. I don't understand. What are they getting from from Kendrick Bourne, from Kayshon Boutte. Yes,
What are they getting from Kendrick Bourne? What are they getting from Kayshon Boutte?
I don't know. I don't know why they don't.
I don't know why. I don't know.
Out there.
Why are they out
there? Final
there?
play of the game.
Final play of the game.
I would have loved if it was Javon Baker. Just set him on a go route, man. This is all this guy did.
I would have loved it if it was Javon Baker. Set him on a go route, man.
Is there an echo in here?
I think we just might have found a new My Dimension bit right there. I don't know. It's pretty fun. The schedule for the Patriots, week 11 and beyond: Rams, Dolphins, Colts, bye week, Cardinals, Bills, Chargers.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Chargers is bad.
Well, you're not. That's the fantasy Super Bowl. You don't have to play Pop Douglas in your fantasy Super Bowl. I think you're okay. I think you'll be fine.
You're playing Douglas.
You're not playing Pop Douglas in your fantasy Super Bowl, okay? But for
a flex though. If you
Hunter Henry, for desperation flex, deep leagues, Pop Douglas, streaming Drake May. Hey, this is why people tune in. We're not tuning in to let's debate the top 5 receivers this week. That's not what we're doing, right? This fringe options. And I think there's also a perception that the Bucs are trending down. How is Baker doing this? Is there an explanation?
Well, I think starting with Cade Otton, man, is he good? I mean, he looks like he's pretty good. I mean, this was a guy that they never really featured at all because they had Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and all these other great playmakers. But, I mean, he's really stepped up. I thought that he's looked pretty good. He hasn't been just a classic, hey, catch the ball, fall down. I think he's done a little bit more than that. I mean, he's putting up 30% target shares left and right. So, I don't know. Cade Otton has somehow taken on a persona of a player I never really thought that he could be. This dynamic tight end that's not what he's been, but the box score, he's looked good. I don't know if it's just because Baker's making the magic happen. I know you're about to kill this Cade Otton thing. I know. I can see it.
I mean, his upside's what? Heath Miller? Steelers Heath Miller, is that his upside? Really? I mean, I'm not doing it, man. I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. Runs a 4.78. But he was very productive at Washington, very productive. He's a good football player, but he will be limited. The problem is, he didn't play a lot in college.
Yeah, he was hurt, right?
Yeah, that's why his dominator rating is so impressive, because he was hurt a lot. Only played in 4 games in 2020, 8 games in 2021. And the one season he played 10 or more games, 2019, he did have 344 yards, but only 10.8 yards per reception that year. He maxed out at 3 receiving touchdowns in college. I can't do it. I mean, this is one I'll never fall for. And my track record not falling for these guys, not falling for Dalton Schultz, not falling for Jake Ferguson, I feel very good about my track record not falling for these guys. You think I'm going to fall for these guys now? You think I'm going to start touting a Cade Otton now after 10 years of getting it right? I'm going to fall for it now?
Well, why can't he be Jake Ferguson? Right?
Exactly.
But I mean, this year, that's good. That's good. I'm not saying you got to go get him in Dynasty no matter what. But,
I mean, you're just, when you drafted Jake Ferguson over a Kittle type, maybe,
Njoku.
Sure. Yeah. Or an Njoku profile. Again, you'd have to clearly decide to draft tight end a few rounds earlier to get Kittle, but I mean, the ADP disparity, not that great, right? Not that wide. Think about the year before where Schultz was going vis-a-vis players like Kittle. So okay. I'm going to go with the Kittles and the Njokus, and that's who I have on my team right now. Those are my guys. I think Theo and I have a Kings Classic team that has exactly Kittle and Njoku. So, or no, it's Bowers and Njoku. But I mean, that's basically Bowers is Kittle. I mean, this is like, imagine Kittle with
no.
no receiving competition, right? That would be Bowers. It's the same thing. So that's I have a sensibility. It has served me very well. And hell, if I'm gonna start now with Cade fucking Otton. It's not happening. It's not gonna. My pick for this week's Nick Westbrook-Akine is, if healthy, another Washington player, Jalen McMillan. Like, he's forgotten about. He has the hamstring injury. He's inactive. And you can scoop him up on the waiver wire for free. Let waivers run and scoop this guy up. There's so many of these guys that you can get every week. I picked up Nick Westbrook-Akine for free last week, and he put up like whatever it was, 16 fantasy points. This is a great opportunity. Guys get dropped on Saturday. They clear waivers because, it's not going to happen. And then you pick a guy up, and he's in a game with a 50-point total. And next thing you know, you look up, and he's got 10 targets for 80 yards and a touchdown. This is what we're talking about. The 49ers' pass defense is a shell of its former self, and they're at home. No, I'm sorry. The total's 51 now. And this is the beauty of it. The Buccaneers are 5.5-point dogs at home against a team that does not have a stout pass defense. This is the occasion where you would bet on the negative game script, the passing game at home with the negative game script. If the defense is too stout, it's a trap, right? So on the other end of this are the Jacksonville Jaguars. Also, a buy low opportunity. Looks like an incompetent franchise. Trevor Lawrence is a bust. The receivers are getting injured. Now would be the time in a seasonal league. You're not going to get him in Dynasty, but now would be the time to try to send in an offer after a down week for Brian Thomas. Buy high on Evan Ingram. Buy low on Travis Etienne. But the problem with week 10 is the Vikings defense has been so smothering, and that's a defense I don't trust Trevor Lawrence to be able to leverage garbage time and get a lot out of it. Yeah, hey, great, garbage time. Oh, but it's Trevor Lawrence against the Vikings. Ooh, that's not actually going to amount to anything. Maybe Etienne, though. Maybe dump-offs to Etienne. That could be where you get garbage time payoff in that game.
Well, if Etienne's still a Jacksonville Jaguar by the time week 10 kicks off, because I know he's been floated around in trade rumors because they have some of these other players. So I do like buying low in the Jaguars, though, especially Brian Thomas. He's a player that I've liked a lot this season. He's been really productive despite the up and down of Trevor Lawrence. And if they have, I think he should see a lot of volume. And he was dealing with an injury last week. So I like buying low on Brian Thomas. Jalen McMillan, I'm just concerned that he's not healthy and they have a bye week. So do they hold him out another week to get to the bye to really, because this is the second time he's hurt his hamstring. So that concerns me about McMillan against the 49ers.
Where would Travis Etienne go? The Cowboys?
The
Chiefs?
Raiders.
It's always the Cowboys, the Chiefs.
Raiders. I mean,
Raiders.
they have a brand new
The Raiders
now.
are in the market for a running back? What? Really?
I mean, are they going to just roll with Alexander Mattison and Zamir White? Is that the plan?
I mean, if it helps them lose games, they should be doing that. But with the trade deadline, is it today?
It is today, and Podfather, did you see? We have more breaking news.
Whoa,
steal your
let's
shit.
do it. I figured there would be. While we were talking, I was like, okay, we're going to go live at noon. There's a real opportunity to get some multiple breaking news segments.
Am I breaking the news? Oh, it's great. So, breaking. The Jets are trading veteran wide receiver Mike Williams to the Pittsburgh Steelers, per Tom Pelissero.
Wow. Pittsburgh desperately working the phones for weeks and weeks, going all the way back to Brandon Ayuk trade talks to get a receiver opposite George Pickens, and they've had to settle for the husk of Mike Williams. Oof.
It's gonna be more moonballs, moonshots from Russ to Big Mike. And that's gonna be it. We'll see what works out.
Not good.
It's
Not
interesting
good.
But
still no trade of Travis Etienne. So my buy low on Travis Etienne holds, but a buy low on Travis Etienne now holds anyway. If anything, you better get him now and hope no one is wise to the imminent trade that's about to happen for a running back. Whenever a running back gets traded like this Khalil Herbert, I'm always surprised. It was the most obvious running back trade that I could ever imagine. Like, we've been talking about when will Khalil Herbert be traded for the last 2 months. So it has been in the works since the season started. That's the one opportunity you could see where you have a clear third running back who could be a starter, and there's one team that doesn't have a true workhorse profile running back. You've got a grinder back and you've got a satellite back plus, but you really don't have an all-purpose back on the roster in Cincinnati. That made a lot of sense. It's very difficult to find another team where a trade for a running back like Etienne or anyone else would make any sense, that a team would even be motivated. Like, you make the call, hey, Travis Etienne's available. He's available. Okay, he's available. Thank you for that call. I'm glad to know he's available. Bye. Like, what do you... I don't understand. None of these make sense. The Chiefs?
No, because they're getting Pacheco back. So, I go back to, the Raiders. They just seem like
the Cowboys, they know this is a lost season. And they know a running back's not going to fix it.
Jerry Jones, didn't you just see him trade for Jonathan Mingo? Clearly, he's still all in. Clearly.
But they just acquired Dalvin Cook. But then they did...
They got to cut Zeke.
They did suspend Zeke, so Zeke's on the way out.
He's gone.
And Travis Etienne does have draft capital, and he's inexpensive. So, yeah, you could see them being excited about Travis Etienne. But it's a redundant skill set with Rico Dowdle. It's just a slight upgrade on Rico Dowdle. That's all Travis Etienne is at this point. It's hard to make a case, man. It's hard to make a case. I think the team that could use him the most, like you said, is the Raiders. Hell, if they're going to be trading for a running back. The Chargers, that would be a good one.
Yeah, Chargers.
See, the Chargers need J.K. Dobbins insurance, and Gus Edwards offers nothing. So that would be the place. That would be the spot. And I could see Jim Harbaugh wanting a running back, wanting one more running back, and an all-purpose back, even better.
What about the Colts? Pass catcher with Jonathan Taylor?
See, that's the problem. That's why I wish I was a little more enthusiastic about the possibility of Tyler Goodson as a satellite back handcuff. But Tyler Goodson's a slasher. He's not really a pass catcher. He's one of these fake satellite backs that is going to give you a long run here and there. He's going to go 60 yards on 8 carries. Nice job, man. Great. How many targets he get? 2. 1 catch for 11 yards. That's the problem. And even the Raiders, they would be better off just giving Dylan Lobby opportunities.
Yeah. I think in most cases, it usually doesn't make sense to trade anything of value for a running back, to be honest. That's why the Bengals traded a 7th-round pick to get Khalil Herbert. They traded the littlest amount of draft capital you could trade to get a running back because Zach Moss is out indefinitely with a neck injury. And that made the most sense. Give the least amount of value.
NFL teams would certainly give up more than that for Etienne, former first-round pick. Clemson running back.
Productive, except for this year because he's been hurt. But
it's very okay. Was it 5 p.m.? Is that the trade deadline? Tuesday, 5 p.m.
I think it's either 5 or 4 p.m. It's usually right around the time.
Yeah. So. Well, stay tuned. Stay tuned to Fantasy Pros and Player Profiler for all the breaking trade news. Exciting times. Well, the Titans, if they were in contention, they could use Travis Etienne because all they have, Tajay Spears is back, so I guess it doesn't.
If he's back. But he's had this hamstring injury because it's one of these things where they trade for him and then, next move, Spears injured reserve, right? We see this all the time.
I really like Julius Chestnut as a grinder back. He is so much better than the Trey Sermons and the Zach Mosses. Like he's actually like Alexander Madison's. Like he's like a Tank Bigsby level grinder. Like he can deliver explosive plays, score a bunch of touchdowns, have big weeks, give you a 25-point week when you're up and you're milking a lead. I like Julius Chestnut a lot, so I don't want anyone going there either because I want to see Chestnut at some point. But ideally, we just let Pollard play this out. Have you seen Pollard's workload?
Yeah. It's
amazing.
Insane. It's insane.
I love it.
Do you? I don't know if I love it.
Well, we keep telling people to play him, and most people are reticent to play him because it's the Titans. And you don't want to play Titans, especially Titans where a running back down 10 points for most of the game, just not appealing. The touchdown equity just isn't there. But he's getting so many carries. You lock in 15 fantasy points with that touch share. He's one of the great workhorse backs in the league.
But what has he been lacking? But what's the ceiling, right? The ceiling hasn't really been there for him because of the aforementioned Titans offense. And it's not good. And you look at the upcoming schedule, it's not good. On the road, again, you talked about it against the Chargers, who just blanked the Cleveland Browns.
It's terrible.
I'm concerned about Pollard rest of season. Again, what was the issue last year with Dallas? Again, he was coming back from the injury, but they overloaded him with touches, and then he wasn't as efficient. So
he's been super unlucky this year, man. Expected fantasy points we have on Player Profiler, 16.8. That's a huge difference between his expected fantasy points and his actual fantasy points of 14.7.
Wasn't that the same thing last year, though, too? He's the expected fantasy points king. I love it, but eventually you got to get the actual fantasy points.
Man, is he too old to ever deliver on his expected fantasy points? He isn't delivering explosive plays. His EPX, his explosive play rating on Player Profiler, number 16 in the NFL. But he's 27 and a half years old. This guy's he's gonna expire as an NFL player without ever having a lucky season, other than those unsustainable efficiency seasons he had in Dallas. And then he gets the workload, gets the efficiency, doesn't get the touchdowns. God, he's snake bitten, man. Yeah. The nice thing about the Chargers is they do allow a lot of fantasy points to running backs as receivers. They're top 5.
Yeah. But where are the touchdowns, right? That's the issue. Again, he doesn't have, in half PPR, he doesn't have any top 10 finishes all year. 0. So, yes, you're right about, you lock in the floor with Tony Pollard. But Chargers, Vikings, Texans, next 3 weeks, 2 games on the road. That's not good. So.
All right. So, but Tajay Spears is probably not going to happen. At this point, I think it's going to happen.
It seems like a lost season for him, unfortunately.
But no, Pollard's back next year for the Titans. So I don't think it's gonna. I think in Dynasty, I think Spears is over.
Well, because he doesn't have. He's the rare. Doesn't he not have an ACL? Wasn't that his thing coming out of school where he's missing the ACL, and we were worried about his longevity? And yeah.
So I actually I prefer Chestnut as the handcuff there over Spears moving forward for the next year and a half. Who are you handcuffs right now? Let's lay him out. Ray Davis. He's technically still a handcuff, though.
Well, we've seen him in action when Cook is out, number 1, and then it seems like every other time he touches the ball, he's finding the end zone somehow, some way. So yeah, good. He's a very good running back.
You prefer Ray Davis over Algier?
I think as a standalone, if I'm not starting either guy,
no.
Yeah, I think Ray Davis would probably slide in there just because he has the higher ceiling ultimately.
What about over
But
Herbert? Where do we put Herbert now?
I just don't know if the pass game stuff, because that's always been the thing that he's lacked with the Bears. They've never trusted him in pass pro, and I don't know if because the Bengals were very particular about Chase Brown, and they're, hey, we can't use you in pass pro. You have to prove it to us. So I don't think that even if Brown gets hurt, they have some weird infatuation with using Travion Williams in pass protection. So I think Herbert would get the early down stuff, but maybe not as much pass game usage. So I think I'd still prefer Algier and Ray Davis to Khalil Herbert.
And then Roschon below them.
Yeah, because Roschon is touchdown or bust. I don't know if Swift. Again, I don't like buying Bears except for Odunze.
Okay.
I think that he's just uber talented.
Okay. Braylon Allen, where does he slot in?
He's probably at the top.
You have Braylon Allen ahead of all those guys? Not ahead of Ray Davis.
I mean,
James Cook goes down. Ray Davis is a monster.
Breece Hall goes down. Braylon Allen's not a monster?
Braylon Allen's still a Jet.
I guess you're just comparing offenses. You'd rather have the Bills guy, so yeah.
I think so. But yeah, Braylon Allen's right there. He's got to be right there. I'm higher on Roschon because I think Roschon's just really good, and I'm more bullish on this Bears offense. Bulls and Bears, Chicago. Hey, no. How about Blake Corum? Now, where does Blake Corum fit into this?
It's tough because you just think that eventually it's going to catch up to Kyron, the 99% snap share every single week. But every week it doesn't. Look, we haven't seen him play yet, but I am confident that he would deliver if he got any type of workload in this offense. The Rams, per the Fantasy Pro strength of schedule tool, #1 schedule rest of the season for running backs. So I can't rank him confidently above a lot of these guys because I just don't know what his path is. But I mean, I'm holding.
What do you mean you don't know his path? Wouldn't you rather have him stashed than Braylon Allen? The upside, the injury contingent upside, injury-driven contingent upside for Corum, especially based on the schedule that you just laid out, has to be higher than Braylon Allen, but higher than Ray Davis, I don't think so.
Yeah. I guess strict handcuffs, it would be Corum probably over.
Now, let's make it interesting. What about Kamani Vidal?
I'm not a huge Vidal guy, to be honest. So I'm going to
below all those guys, below Roschon?
Yes. Yeah, he would be below there for me.
Okay. Trey Benson.
So this is the one I think I actually like the most. Trey Benson.
Of all of them?
Yeah. Because I'm looking at the
What
starter,
about DeMarcado? Right? You don't think DeMarcado, of all of these situations, Atlanta, Buffalo, Cincinnati, Chicago, New York, Arizona's the one team where it's not clear who they would give the most touches to the first week if they had no, the week that they're without James Conner.
I don't see it that way. I think it would be Benson. Okay. Why would he not be operating in the James Conner role?
I don't know.
I
would give him an 80% opportunity share if it were me, but every time I look up, they're trying to give DeMarcado touches. Are they not? Yeah, and then who's getting the garbage time looks? It's Benson. But when the game is actually competitive, they're more likely to hand the ball off. If it's not Conner, it's DeMarcado.
I don't know. I mean, James Conner got banged up last week at the goal line, and who came in? Not DeMarcado. It was Benson. Benson
came in,
and he scored the touchdown. So if I'm looking for the touchdowns, the ultimate upside, I pointed this out when I first looked at the schedule when it first released. I remember putting on X, whatever, Trey Benson, league winner, because I looked at the Cardinals schedule in the fantasy playoffs. You've got so after their bye week, they have the Jets this week, and then they go on bye. They have the Seahawks twice, the Vikings, Patriots, Panthers, Rams again, and then the 49ers. Like, I think Trey Benson, look, if we're looking at who's most likely to get hurt, isn't it not James Conner? Like, we've seen this song, and we've done this song and dance with him every single year, where he's really productive, but then, and the last couple of weeks, he's been nicked up here and there, where it's like, oh, he missed a snap here, he's dealing with something on the sideline, so he hasn't really had that one injury. And again, hate projecting injuries, but we know this with James Conner. That's why
torn labrum, something like that, some sort of shoulder sprain.
This is why they drafted Trey Benson.
Broken collarbone. I just feel like James Conner, he's such a violent runner. Sometimes his shoulders take a disproportionate amount of contact.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's their future, right? Why would they not want to give an extended look at the guy they drafted in the second round, super explosive running back we see this all the time with these rookie running backs during the fantasy playoffs, right? It's like, remember Jonathan Taylor, right? As a rookie, what did he do? Not much leading up till the end of the year. And then he got his opportunity and he smashed. So for me, that guy's Trey Benson.
Over Vidal.
Yes. Over Vidal.
For me, it's close between those two.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
And then the clear choice that's not a 1-for-1 replacement is Jalen Wright. Right?
Yes. Yes. I would agree.
Right. And then after him would be Garendo.
You think that Garendo's just totally dusted Mason? It's just over for Mason?
Well, no, because there's no more choices. You know who's after that? You know we've listed all the good options. You want to know who's after?
So.
You think I have you think I'm holding back on you?
No.
You think I'm holding back Cam Akers? Think I'm holding back? Think I'm holding back Kenneth Gainwell? Antonio Gibson? I'm holding back on you.
Cam Akers look good. 7 yards per carry, I think.
It was crazy. How is that possible? I'm going to
the
go
Vikings
with randomness.
to get him back.
I'm going to go with variance.
The Vikings traded to get him back on the team after they released him last year.
Yeah.
Like, we need this guy.
So the chat has reminded me of one of the great fails in the history of the show. Can you guess what it is?
From your perspective, or just
yes, as the host? This is a host failure
on your part.
Very bad. Very bad mistake that I made.
I don't know.
I did not do the proper Bulls intro.
Oh, yeah.
We started talking, and you and I are such good friends that we just started chatting, and I totally spaced that I'm supposed to be hosting a show with a structure.
Oh, wow. I kind of noticed that. I was like, oh, I guess when it didn't happen, I was like, oh, I guess we're just changing it up, or was it like...
No, we're not changing it up. This was a mistake. So I have an idea.
This is a great mistake.
No, this was a mistake. It was a mistake, and now it's in the show. So what we're going to do is, that's how we're going to close out the show.
All right.
We've never done this. So to close out, and it was funny because in the top 10 takeaways show that I recorded yesterday, I didn't have a good way of going out. And of course, I edited it for the podcast. If you're listening to the podcast, it sounded great. Okay. It was a great crescendo. But because I can do whatever I want once I have the audio in the editing room. But when we were live, I was like, oh, okay, bye. And I didn't have So now we can lock in a nice crescendo, which is actually an introduction as the closing of the show. So stay tuned for that, everybody. Stay tuned for that. And now I have 10 burning questions. 10 burning questions. Oh, yes. 10 burning questions for Andrew Erickson after this. Oh, every week I'm answering these start-sit questions on Sunday morning. I go to the weekly rankings on playerprofiler.com just to make sure that my instincts are correct, and sometimes they're not. And guess what? More often than not, I go with the projections. You may not feel great about starting Daniel Jones or Wan'Dale Robinson, but the projections say, hey, that's the move. It may not feel right, but you use those projections to get it right. That's the power of the Player Profiler system. It's Evan Ringler, it's Bradley Stalder, it's Theo Greminger, of course, it's Billy Muzio making these rankings possible. The season rankings, so you know who to pick up, who to trade for. The Dynasty rankings are part of this. The offensive line rankings from Dan Fornick, one of the best in the business. Then we get our cornerback rankings, which show which corners are matched up with which wide receivers. And now, in collaboration with the IDP show, we have IDP rankings. Did you know that? Did you? So go to playerprofiler.com, use promo code PODFATHER. Get you 25% off the player rankings package right now at playerprofiler.com. Enjoy! 10 burning questions for Andrew Erickson. Off we go. By the way, when I was talking about the rankings, there's a mistake in that video where you can see a little pip window of me that was unintentional, and we're gonna have to. That's a little for the next time anyone's watching. Just a little Easter egg for you. Will we fix it? I don't know. Well, it depends on how crazy obsessive compulsive I am at any given moment. What are you expecting from Christian McCaffrey this week?
Full go. I think that once the bullets start flying with Kyle Shanahan this game, these coaches can't help themselves. He's going to see McCaffrey rip off a big run, make a big catch, and then he's just not going to be able to stop feeding him the ball. Whether that's right or wrong remains to be seen, but I think that he's just going to feature him, because this team needs to win games soon and now. So I think he's going to use him a lot.
How are the Cowboys merely a 7-point dog this week? There's no Dak Prescott, probably no CeeDee Lamb. This is a demoralized franchise heading in the wrong direction. Just traded for Jonathan Mingo, for Christ's sake. They're playing the Eagles, and now the line has moved to 7.5. That makes a little more sense, but it opened at 7.
On the if you follow me on the Betting Pros app, you'll find that I bet this at Eagles -6.5. So plug right there. I don't know why.
So it's already moved. It's already moved a full point. It opened at 6.5.
Yep.
That was the thing, because this makes sense, because when I sent you the show sheet, it had moved to 7, and so okay, it's on the move. Where do you think this line's going to close at?
8, 8.5. I mean, once people start to realize that
8.5 makes more sense.
Dak's not playing, Lamb's not playing probably, and it's the Eagles. Look, I don't ever feel comfortable laying that many points with Nick Sirianni, but you have to remember, well, who are they facing? Mike McCarthy. Like that's the way you got to look at it.
He's still the coach.
It's over for Dallas. Like it's over for Dallas right now. And
why did they hire him?
Because
what
he
was the
going
thinking?
to
Do you remember back? Like, he was a washed out coach who was only even relevant because of Aaron Rodgers. He was just riding the Aaron Rodgers wave when he was in his prime. Why did they think that he was a plus EV coach? I don't understand that.
Because he would do what Jerry could tell him what to do. And
their point differential's -54.
Yeah, it's bad. It's one of the worst, I think, since one of those seasons where Dak barely played at all, when it was just the team. I mean, we're looking at Dallas this year. When we're talking about top 5 draft pick, I mean, it's going to be Dallas is going to be in that conversation. We're like, hey, top of the draft, who's picking? Oh, Dallas is on the clock. Oh, what do you know?
Have you seen the projected draft picks in the 2025 NFL draft?
The players or the order?
The projected draft order.
Patriots, number 1.
It's fascinating. Patriots are on top.
It
goes Patriots, and then Jaguars, Saints, Panthers, Browns, Raiders, Giants, and then do you know who's at 8?
No. You gotta tell me.
Dolphins.
Oh, yeah, the Dolphins.
Oh, they might get a quarterback. Waddle to the moon. Yes, waddle to the moon in Dynasty. So it's interesting. You have the top 2 right now, 1 and 2, have quarterbacks. So they're not going to be in the market for quarterbacks. That's what I want. I want the top 2 teams to not need quarterback. I don't want New Orleans. I don't want Cleveland. Those are the teams I want in there. And then all the teams after them, Carolina, Las Vegas, New York, Miami, Tennessee, New York Jets, all desperate for quarterback help. but the top two are not. I think that's fascinating.
Perfect. Perfect for teams that need to build around their star quarterbacks.
That's right. That's right. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot of garbage time with Dallas. And even in a situation where the team is overwhelmed and they're getting crushed and they can't get anything going, can't matriculate the ball down the field, by the time the fourth quarter rolls around, the primary receiver has figured out a way to get there most weeks. Again, that's the case for Jalen Tolbert. It's Jalen Tolbert week. That's my number one play. That's my number one value play this week in fantasy football. What do you think's going to end up becoming of Chuba Hubbard?
I think that he's going to become part of a committee, more so a committee. I mean, he's been the bell cow. He's been a great pick this season, right? In fantasy, he was a smash pick. He was the best, I think, zero RB. Again, even though zero RB wasn't a great strategy because all the receivers got hurt. If you had Chuba Hubbard as your zero RB target, he was good. And if you were playing him, he was productive. But, I mean, why do the Panthers don't have incentive to feature Jonathan Brooks in some capacity? At least see what he has to offer. He's their future. Hubbard is a free agent at the end of the season. So, and they still have Miles Sanders on the roster too. So I don't know if they're going to try to trade him. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I think Hubbard, I think that the ride has just kind of come to an end with him. And he was great to start the year, but I just don't think he's going to be as useful second half.
Where is he going to be next year?
I'm trying to think which team is going to be, I don't want to say stupid enough because I like Hubbard as a player. I think that he's been really underrated. I think if he hadn't torn it, he tore his ACL in college, right? And that's why he fell in the draft. But he was a 2,000-yard rusher, right? Wasn't he at Oklahoma State?
I don't think it was an ACL. It might have been an ACL. It could have been like an LCL.
He had a big injury, and that's why he fell.
There was a big injury, but I don't know if it was an ACL specifically. But he did have, I believe it was a leg injury, probably a knee injury in college. But he did have a 2,000-yard season the year prior.
Yes. So he's productive at college. He's been, I mean, behind McCaffrey, obviously you're never going to get to play, but when he had his chances, he's delivered, especially this year. This has been his best season. So I'm afraid to declare him as the next dead zone running back because that's kind of the profile that these guys get is they see a bigger role and then they get paid by a team and then they just fall off the face of the earth. So you're looking at Chuba Hubbard, the starting running back of the Las Vegas Raiders in 2025.
That's possible. We'll see. We're going to see how Chase Brown plays out. The Bengals may be in the market for a running back. If Chase Brown could prove them wrong, there's no loyalty to any particular running back on the roster in Los Angeles with the Chargers. There's going to be pressure to re-sign to some, moderate, fair extension for J.K. Dobbins if he stays healthy and he helps them get into the playoffs. That's the classic example of a team that will do that player a solid. They know that he won't command a lot of money in the open market. They'll just take care of him. That's a great example where you see it. The NFL sometimes does the right thing. In that situation, the NFL tends to do the right thing, which is cool. Not that many places you can see Chuba Hubbard. Maybe Pittsburgh, right? They let Najee Harris walk and then they backfill him with Chuba Hubbard. That's a possibility too.
Yeah, I think that's interesting.
The Pittsburgh Steelers 2026 starting running back Chuba Hubbard. That's what I'm going with.
Pittsburgh Steelers.
I don't hate it.
So Najee's gone then, right? He's.
I think so. I think.
I don't hate that Hubbard and Jalen Warren.
That's what I'm saying. That's run its course, and then Najee, then he goes to the Las Vegas Raiders.
So he's the dead zone running back,
right? Or the Cowboys. Of course, the Cowboys are going to want a former first round pick. That makes sense.
Oh yeah, they won't be able to help themselves.
Right? They won't be able. They'll finally. They're like, you know what? We did such a great job these last few years, not overspending on running back, and it's what's killed us. You could hear like the analysts talking, and you could see the articles being written in the Locked On Cowboys about the thing that they've really been missing is a running game.
We need the running back back.
Right.
Running backs are
that's
back.
been the big fail of the organization, is not investing in the running game. And then, you know what? The answer to that is Najee Harris. That's the clear answer to that. If you want to shut up Locked On Cowboys, that's the answer. It's got to be.
Hubbard, 2025, Dallas Cowboys. It's
got to be. I think that's it. So the Chiefs are playing the Broncos this week. This is one of those instances where, again, in previous years, I'd be a little more open to playing a Bo Nix, but the secondary for the Chiefs has been so smothering that I just don't trust that Bo Nix is going to be able to get anything going at any point in the game. Very difficult streaming, very difficult player to play, period. And then I look at the other side, and I'm reminded that the Chiefs have a wide receiver that was an inspiration to so many people. Xavier Worthy. Xavier Worthy. Is he a bust?
I don't think so. No, he is not a bust, in my opinion. He's a rookie receiver drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs, who traditionally always slow play their rookies. And immediately from day one, he had to be thrown into the mix for a role that I don't know if they necessarily envisioned him taking on right away. I mean, they signed all these other guys. They had Marquise Brown. They had Rashee Rice. But, I mean, look, if he just has his feet in bounds, he could have scored a touchdown on Monday Night Football and then no one would even care, right? He's had opportunities. Mahomes has missed him deep. They have been on the same page at points. So I think that he's fine. I think that he's fine. He's a rookie. He's still a young player. I'm not worried about Xavier Worthy.
Should we add him to our buy low targets?
Yes, because you know who's not going to be getting coverage from Patrick Surtain? Xavier Worthy. Because he's going to be all over DeAndre Hopkins, the guy that really doesn't win with separation, but goes up as a clasher, like you like to say, goes up and gets the ball. And I think he's going to do that. And I think Surtain's probably the best matchup for Denver to put on Hopkins.
You think Xavier Worthy is the highest scoring Xavier rookie receiver this year?
I don't think so, though. No, probably not. Because
it's Xavier Legette.
Yes, Legette. Going to be the wide receiver one.
It's pronounced Legette. I'm getting that right finally. It's Xavier Legette. This is the triple coin flip situation of the season. Is who scores more fantasy points from this point forward? Is it Adam Thielen? Is it Legette? Is it Coker?
I think it's Legette. Still go with him. You know,
it's probably Legette, even though Thielen did have 1,000 yards last year.
Yeah, he did. But I think
like over 100 catches.
Yeah, but he's been banged up all year. He's an older receiver. Are we expecting him to come back and just be, spring chicken? Right? I don't think so. I think there's a reason why nobody was really high on Thielen because of his age and how last year was very front loaded by a lot of garbage time production. And again, that's what you're still hoping for with Legette. But Legette's still a first round pick too. So again, Worthy was a first round pick. Legette was a first round pick. So I don't think it's crazy to think that Legette as the number one receiver in his offense can outscore Worthy. So.
But if you were betting, not talking about upside, we know that Legette has more upside, but if you were just betting on total fantasy points any given week where they're healthy, you wouldn't take Thielen?
Of all the Panthers receivers?
Yeah.
Probably not, no. I mean, why are we chasing an older player coming off?
I'm not saying chasing. I'm saying they're not going to score a lot of points anyway.
Fair.
But the guy that's probably going to get the targets is, we learn this lesson all the time with these wide receivers in their 30s. They end up getting the 8 targets, and there's nothing you can do about it, man. We don't want it to be the case. What I want to happen is I want Jalen Coker. That's what I want to happen. This is an incredible story. This is an undrafted wide receiver from Holy Cross that's contributing big snaps, running a lot of routes, catching a lot of passes as a rookie in the NFL. It's damn near unprecedented, man.
Yeah. It was crazy when he and Khalif Raymond two of the Holy Cross players that I know in the NFL both scored touchdowns in the same week.
That's what I want to happen. I don't know, man. I was going back and forth. All of you checking the Fab guidance on Patreon. I might change that around. I might flip it. I might have to flip it. We'll see what happens. I got to think about it.
To go for Thielen?
I move Thielen down. I don't know. That's a tricky. If anyone thinks that's an easy answer, full of shit.
I mean, are you gonna lose your fantasy league if you don't have a Panthers receiver though?
A lot of people that listen to this show are in deep leagues, and we were playing Nick Westbrook-Akine. We're gonna be playing some Jalen Tolbert, and Coker versus Legette versus Thielen is an interesting question to a lot of people in this audience. Deal with it, Andrew.
It's been dealt.
It's been dealt.
I feel it.
So this one's obvious. Like no one's benching him anymore. But I now call it the Darnell Mooney corollary. The Darnell Mooney corollary is if you have a wide receiver with serious spike week upside, you got to play him over the running backs. Are getting touches, but don't quite have the TD equity. But they're getting touches. Fuck it, you got to go Mooney. Like you were talking about with like a Tony Pollard, right? You could play Pollard and bank your 14 fantasy points, or you can play Mooney and potentially get 25 fantasy points. That's the Darnell Mooney corollary. In PPR leagues, I'm more often playing the wide receiver that I think has spike week upside. That's the way to go. I'll take the variance. I want the upside. I want the potential week winner in there. This week, though, his potential is like top 10 receiver. It's like he's blown past it. Like he's not even in consideration. He's just a lock every week. Good player, man.
Darnell Mooney or Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Darnell Mooney. You think people are starting JSN over Mooney this week?
Well, JSN's on a bye, so no.
Oh, okay. Jeez, thanks a lot, man. Okay, no, the bye week's right in front of me. He got me.
I said rest of season.
Oh, rest of season.
Yes, rest of season. So we're talking about JSN sell high. Is Mooney the guy you go ahead?
Either way, that's actually a clever way to get people when you go on podcasts. Yeah. He's on bye this week. Ah!
That was not my intention.
No, I know. It was a good one, though. Yeah, no. Well, DK Metcalf's going to be back eventually, so I got to go Mooney. If you want to keep giving me these comparison points of Mooney versus player X, it's almost always going to be Mooney. Okay. Until we get to Josh Downs.
Yeah.
You try to pull Josh Downs on me, that's when I pivot. Okay, Josh Downs.
So you take Mooney over Tank Dell, though?
I think you found the friction point.
It's close, right? But that's the range.
That is it. Again, Tank Dell just demonstrated exactly what we wanted, which was 120 plus yards. We wanted to see it. We wanted to see him squeeze the football deep. We wanted to see him look healthier, explosive. He did all those things. You could argue there's some benefit to getting Nico back. Offensively better, more TD equity, distracting the defense away from little Tank Dell. You love it. You love to see it. Things are lining up for him in a big, big way. God. I'll go Tank Dell because the Falcons have Kyle Pitts and the Falcons have Bijan Robinson, and they command a little bit more of the target share than Mixon and Schultz. So that's going to be my reasoning. But it's close. Man, it's close.
Very close. I agree, though. I would still
all right.
stick with Tank.
Tony Friedrich is asking or stating that this is not the starter stream show. Okay? He doesn't want start-sit questions. He doesn't want to try to get to which player to play this week in DFS and in fantasy. He wants something else. I don't know what Troy Friedrich wants. Troy, you should put the link to your fantasy podcast in the show right now in the chat. I want to go listen to it because if you're not talking about who to play in week 10, the first week of November on a fantasy football podcast, that's not a Dynasty show. We have a Dynasty show called the Sonic Truth Podcast that's going live this Friday with Theo and Alan. We're going live on Friday, so tune in for that show if that's what you're looking for. But the Mind of Mansion show during the year is a straight-up fantasy football podcast. And I don't know what shows you're listening to, what expectations you have for shows that don't talk about who to play this week. Where do these people come from, man?
Honestly, I don't know.
I don't know where they...
I'm not sure if they just click on the link and just kind of roll up and say, what is this? This looks interesting. And then it's not what they expect. I mean, it's not like this is I'm sure that on YouTube or wherever this is streaming, it doesn't say, it says Mind of Mansion, right? It doesn't say the start or sit stream. So yeah, I mean, he's not wrong. It's not start or sit stream.
No, what? No, that's the thing though. He isn't wrong. And
Right.
the other important note is that I appreciate the sarcasm. But that's the thing. Like, I am mentioning it. You realize we have a lot of comments during the show, and I don't mention many of them. But when I have any visceral response, so if anyone's actually thinking about starting their own podcast, speaking of that, my standards for do we share a comment or not during the stream or during the podcast is, did it make me feel something? One way or the other. Was I angered? Was I happy? Right? Did it make me smile? Did it make me frown? Did it make me mad? Like, then we're going to share it. All I want you to do is make me feel. Make me feel something. That is one of, I think, the job that you have as a commenter on this show, in the comments on YouTube, in the live chat. You have one primary job. I'm giving this to you, and this is something you need to hold on to as your instructions for the rest of your life, as long as this show exists. Make me feel. What are you expecting from Amari Cooper this week?
Well, it's been inactive and then a horrible game. So it seems like a perfect spot for an eruption for Amari Cooper, because this is when this is the roller coaster ride. When you least expect it, that's when Amari Cooper goes off. So if Keaton Coleman he's a little bit banged up, if Cooper is healthy from this wrist injury, you watch. He's going to explode. So,
Yep. Do you agree with my premise that Amari Cooper is a great fit, the perfect fit for Josh Allen? Because he's an improvisational receiver and Josh Allen is an improvisational quarterback?
Yeah, I could get behind that. I guess I didn't view Cooper as that, but when you bring that up, that does kind of make. I guess for me, it's still.
You know, there is a coach that famously hates Amari Cooper. Do you know who it is?
Is it one of his former
He
coaches?
is synonymous with the West Coast offense, not Bill. John Gruden. If it's a timing-based offense, those offensive coordinators hate Amari Cooper because Amari Cooper wants to go out there and, that's what he wants to do. He wants to jab step and not let you know where he's going, and that's not great for the West Coast offense. That's bad.
And that makes sense why he's so inconsistent because
he is yes. Of course, you don't know. You can't game plan with him. But hasn't been since he was drafted from Wyoming. There hasn't been a game plan for the Bills. It's whatever Josh wants to do this play.
Yeah, I that's the thing with Cooper. I get that he's so frustrating to roster, but when you have him in the fantasy playoffs and your opponent has him, or you strike fear into your opponent when you see Amari Cooper in their lineup. Because what did he do last year? Right, 50 points. He can just totally take over a week in the playoffs, and you're just I got Coopered. Right. And I remember last year.
Oh, we got we have a new comment from Troy. Troy Friedrich came back. Oh no. This apparently has been a big misunderstanding. Oh, no. Troy said that he was actually caping up for me, letting other people know that this isn't the Start a Stream show because they were asking Start Sick questions. So he was actually doing us. He was talking to them. So then
not all heroes wear capes.
It
Troy.
Doesn't matter how it comes to be, whether it's a misunderstanding or a perfect understanding. I felt something, and it was great content. And we can't put that genie back in the bottle. I'm not going to say I'm sorry, Troy, because I'm not sorry. At no point should you ever be sorry for laying down great radio.
I like that. Should get that tattooed on my body.
Yeah, it's a good line. Okay. Will Deontay Johnson be startable this year?
I don't think so. I think he gets a spike week, and then I think you try to trade him. I think that's probably the move because he'll have a spike week, but predicting it without an injury, it's gonna be tough.
Gotta ride it out in Dynasty too. Oof. It's just one of those things, man. Just one of those things. Football. Deontay Johnson, I'm like, football. These things happen. Okay, now you're a Fantasy Pros analyst, and we're gonna milk that right now. Sweet. Give us your top 3 tight ends the rest of the way.
I've got Brock Bowers, number 1. Trey McBride, number 2. And I have George Kittle, number 3.
There it is. Okay, I think that is most likely a consensus. I have Kittle, number 1. Then Bowers, then McBride.
So we both don't have Kelsey. So
I'm not a Kelsey guy.
That's fair.
I was very quick to call Kelsey dust, and then of course, as soon as you do that.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Right,
like
90 yards and 2 touchdowns. Of course, because that's, again, what the NFL does to me. Okay, give me your favorite streaming defense this week.
Giants.
Giants face the Panthers. Okay, that's too easy. All right, we know that.
What do you mean?
Thank you. It's a good defense.
They're not Ross. It's the defense. It's the right answer.
I know it's the right. Okay, well, I'll do this for you. Let me do this for you. I'll do this for you. How about this? That's the right answer. I shouldn't. Oh. Milo McDonald agrees with me. George Kittle, tight end 1, baby, the rest of the way. Thank you, Milo. This is what that made me feel, so I shared it. Yeah, no Tucker Kraft. Duh. Tucker Kraft? What? Come on now. I mean, is his ADOT negative at this point? All right.
Tucker Kraft.
Give us a non-Giants defense to stream.
Falcons. Against the Saints.
Do you think their defense is good enough to stream at New Orleans?
I think the Saints' offense is bad enough to stream.
They got Derek Carr back. They're just going to be direct snapping it to Taysom Hill. How is that going to lead to turnovers?
Well, you said I couldn't use the Giants.
Oh, before you even answer that, I got to make sure we gave it. You needed it. You need to be humbled on that.
Well, you took away the right answer, so.
Yeah. Also, people are going to say the Bears. Be careful. Be careful starting defenses against Drake May. The Bears are always a great start, but just be careful starting defenses against Drake May.
Really?
I mean, not the Bears. The Bears are, but I'm just saying the logic behind that. But the problem is, I think the Bears are widely rostered. They're not even.
The Bears are definitely rostered. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's like a streaming defense, is it?
I mean, I can't imagine people didn't. I mean, I guess maybe you didn't play them against the Cardinals last week, but I mean, no, they would be. I would start them over the Giants if that's the conversation we're having. I'd rather start the Bears.
The Bears are. Yeah, come on, chat. Be better. Be better, chat. Be better. There's not a lot of great options, actually. There just are not a lot of great options. Eagles, are they available?
Probably not. I don't think so.
I don't like to ask this question, and for some reason I did, this streaming defenses question, and now I remembered why I hate this question. I never ask it.
Just stream the Giants.
It's this fucking shitty question.
Like
I should have just taken the answer. I should have just taken the chalk answer and moved on.
The Giants are available, 90%.
The Giants are available. Oh, well, okay. Here's a good one. The Commanders acquired Marshawn Lattimore, and it's been a good defense facing Russell Wilson, an overrated Russell Wilson. That's a nice little streamer. Commanders at home is a nice streamer.
Yeah, Commanders, I think they have at home allowed their top 3 and fewest yards per game at home this season. Like,
there you go.
They've been
there.
Legit.
It is. Thank God. It took us forever, but we got there. We actually were able to extract some value from that question, and I'm never going to ask it again. Unless the chat really thinks I need to be asking this question most weeks, I'm not going to.
Hope not.
Give us a bold prediction. Take us out.
Trey Benson, league winner.
That's actually not taking us out because remember, I have to take us out with this the introduction at the end. So we should run that. Earlier, if this was produced professionally, the music would have been running for 20 seconds. But I'm running all my own sound effects. I'm running all my own graphics. And now I'm trying to just shoehorn in an introduction. I'm going to cut and paste it. I'm going to be up late getting this podcast ready because I'm the Podfather. That's what I do. I go the extra mile for you, the audience. And so does Andrew Erickson. Welcome to the Mind of Mansion program, a true fantasy pro. This guy is a great writer. This guy is a great podcaster. This guy knows things. He's a veteran of the Mind of Mansion show. I need him every 6 months. Mark it on your calendar. Here with me today it is Andrew Erickson. Talk to me.
Podfather. LFG. Let's go.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All-In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.